We're Malin, Johan and our daughter Vera. After many years on the ocean, we now build our dream boat from scratch. A 50-foot sailboat with a deck house. We're 2.5 years into the build, and at the moment we're building the reinforcement bulkheads for the shrouds.
So one thing that I didn't think should be a problem is these holes that I did in the epoxy pucks that are now underneath the laminate. And since this is carbon, I can't really use light and see through like that would be possible with the glass. And I thought that there should be some small indentations because we used vacuum for this. We vacuum bagged the whole thing. That we should be able to see where those voids were beneath the laminate. But it turns out that that's not possible. I can't see where the holes are. So what I will try is to cut a jig from the cutting file where I have the whole pattern for this, for the shame plate. And then I will place that on top of this, drill a small pilot hole in one of those holes and see that I'm on the right track so that I can position that pattern the correct way. And then I should be able to find all of them. But it will be a bit of an investigation here to figure this out. This isn't easy. I'm pretty confident that I have found a void here and here and here that corresponds quite well to the pattern. I found it. So now I'll just take them up to the full size, and then I should be able to just place this and then drill the rest of them with the slightly larger drill bit. So if everything is correct now with these lines, when I'm scanning this surface with the router, these lines should line up with the lines from the cutting file when I'm looking through the screen in augmented reality on this piece, when I'm placing the cutting file on top here. Then I know that everything is correct and I can make opening up all the holes all the way through with the router. But for the next bulkhead, I think I will do something different because this was quite a lot of work just finding these holes. So I've just sanded back the top layer of biax glass that we had on top of the carbon. Just in a band down here where we're going to have the tabbing, so that we have carbon tying into carbon in the load path here, running out on the hull. So I'm thinking that the next step now will be to start making those fillets, large radius fillets that we're going to have here to tie this into the hull in a good way. Okay, so yesterday I got the bulkhead in place. It's now in the correct position and glued in with thickened epoxy. But that thickened epoxy won't be near enough to be able to hold this bulkhead in place with the amount of loads that we're going to put on this from the rig. So we need to create some really massive tabbing so that we can get the loads that this carbon, unidirectional carbon here will see, and transition those loads out onto the hull. And this bulkhead is quite different from all the other bulkheads that we have in the boat, because the loads on this will be straight up, trying to rip the whole bulkhead free from the hull. So in this case, we can't use those soft PET foam fillets, because here it's really important to create a foot, so to say, out in the hull that is really stiff. And that's because we need to have really high peel strength here. So that when we get those loads trying to lift this bulkhead, we want to engage as much as possible of that bond area that we see from the fillet. So the larger bond area that we can engage at the same time, the stronger that connection to the hull will be. And having a really stiff tabbing running out on the hull here, that really helps with that, because if we have a bendy and soft tabbing, then the bulkhead can lift, and then we get a lot of leverage here on the laminate, and then it can start to laminate against the hull. And the best way to prevent that in this case is to have a really stiff laminate here, and that's why we're going to tab this with carbon. And I know a lot of people say that you should never mix carbon and glass, but in this case it will be really beneficial, because we want to have a really stiff foot here so that we can engage as much as possible of the bond area at once. And having a big radius here, that also helps creating a really stiff foot that won't flex downwards like this when the forces are going up in the bulkhead. So we're going to have like a 150 millimeter radius on the fillet, and that's quite a lot to do from just thickened epoxy, which would have been the easiest way to do it. I'm thinking that maybe it's possible to do that on this side, because the angle here is a bit more open, but on the other side, where the angle against the hull is more pointy, there will be a lot of epoxy, and then we will have an exothermic runaway if we would put that much epoxy in place at once. On this side it might be possible, so I will try, but on the other side I have to make some wedges from sapele, I'm thinking, to put in there, and then we fill over that with thickened epoxy to get a smooth transition from the bulkhead out on the hull. And having a large radius here, it also helps the carbon laminate with transverse shear forces that would otherwise go straight across the laminate if we would have like a small fillet or no fillet at all. Then it would have been almost like a scissor if it was a corner like this and we have lift. Then it will just, the shear forces will just run straight across the laminate, and that's not very good. Having a large fillet like this, we're moving that transverse shear force into more interlaminar shear forces between the layers in the laminate. And in that case, a laminate like this is much, much stronger, trying to move the different layers between each other than to just straight across the laminate like that.
I'm standing here behind the barn looking at the situation with our lawn, which is not great because unfortunately our much loved robot lawn mower, Luba, just stopped. What is it? 5-6 weeks ago. We don't know what happened and tried everything to start her up again. So we had to send her in for repairs, and she's now been there for close to 5 weeks. And during that time, the grass has grown so much, and unfortunately it's not only the grass that has grown, also all the weeds. And we are struggling with the very, very hard weeds, rotogräs we call it in Swedish, that have the roots really far down in the ground. And the only way for us to keep the weeds, tiring them out, is to cut the grass. So even if we don't want to have, big grass or lawns here in the garden, this is the best for now to control the weeds. And we haven't been able to do that now for many weeks. And I've been trying to keep up with the grass and weeds with the trimmer, which I'm actually going to do now here because it's close to 50 centimeters tall. We also have an old lawn mower, but it's so difficult and hard to use it because you have to push it and it's really heavy. And so it's very, very difficult to do that, and it's not possible with these, with the area that we have. So we just want to have a nice lawn, and we don't want to have these nettles growing that we can burn our feet on, or this skräppor, which is another type of weed that is really hard to get rid of, and it grows really, really thick, and tistlar. So yeah. That's the situation back here. So I'm just gonna take an hour now and take the worst.
So I'm going to cut some triangular shaped fillets with the radius 150 degrees at the top here. And I need quite many of them, and I also need to change the angle of them depending on where along that line on the hull, because the angle from the hull to the bulkhead changes depending on where you are. So I've taken 3 different measurements on that angle, and I think that will be enough to blend it together. But I need quite many pieces, around 30 of them. And then it's the same on the port side, but that's a later problem. Yeah, so I've made some cutting files for this, and I guess it will take a while, but I think this will be the best way to get a really strong fillet without using too much epoxy. You could, of course, probably make this from foam as well, some high density foam, but I don't have that. The stuff that we have is only 100 kilos per cubic meter, and that's a bit too little to have a really strong fillet. Maybe you could have used foam as well and prepared that whole fillet, wrapped it in carbon fiber or glass or something like that, so you get a strong fillet that way. But I think this will be easier and faster than that. So yeah, and epoxy fillet on the other side, the back side that I did, it seems to be holding fine, the temp, with those fans blowing on the fillet, because there is quite a lot of epoxy there, but the temp seems to be staying stable. So it doesn't run away. But we'll see how it looks tomorrow. I'm thinking I probably have to sand it. It was quite hard to get an even surface on it, so I probably have to sand it and maybe add another top layer of thickened epoxy again to get a really smooth curve there. Yeah, I think this is a good example on how it is to build a boat. Some things just takes vastly more amount of time than other things. And this is one of those projects where it feels like the progress is kind of small. This is a quite small part of the boat, but it's so important, so it just needs to be right. So it's worth spending extra time on it. And it takes more thinking, because I haven't done this before. There's more preparations and more steps in the whole process of this. But it's something that needs to be right, because this is something that you don't want to think about when the wind is up and you have a lot of pressure in the rig. You just want to have confidence that this stuff stays in place in the future. So I really think it's worth spending some extra time on it now. Yeah, and maybe it goes without saying that there's been a lot of thinking about this off camera. Something that maybe wouldn't have made a very good YouTube video. But you want to get it right. So I've been looking around for information on this, best practice. How did they do this stuff on high-end boats, IMOCA racing boats? How did they tab their bulkheads in, and how you can use carbon together with glass in the way that I'm going to do. So it's not that I'm just making this stuff up as I go. There's lots of thinking and researching off camera, and some sleepless nights when you're thinking if you have everything, if you're on top of everything. So more prep work this morning. I've been sanding both sides of the bulkheads, and I've been filling this fillet now 2 times because there's just too much to do it in one go. And now I have sanded it and just wiped it down, and hopefully this will be the last layer of epoxy now, so I can go the full length of the bulkhead with one last layer, so that we have a 150 radius all the way here. And then maybe we can start tabbing tomorrow. The front fillet is now finished as well. It's been a lot of work making this. And as you can see, it's a pretty massive fillet, but it's the same radius that we have on the back side here. But because of the angle towards the hull, I needed to move it out so that we could get the same smooth transition here. And this is the result. It needed to be this big. Yeah, so the sapele, as you can see, is in the load path of the shroud. So we're going to run that unidirectional carbon out in the hull and taper that back so that we don't create any hard spot on the hull. And those triangles, they have the grain in the correct direction. So the shear forces in the sapele will be across the fibers, and I can tell you that those triangles are really stiff in that direction. The same direction that the forces will be applied on the carbon. Maybe not the lightest engineering type of fillet, but for me it's a small penalty to have some extra weight and taking up a bit more volume here, to have peace of mind that this bulkhead is going nowhere. So the plan for today is to start tabbing. It's quite warm today, and I want to use vacuum here, so maybe I won't have time to do both in one go. So I will just focus on one of them, and then we'll see how long time that will take. But before I can start tabbing, I have a lot of prep work to do. I need to sand this whole area. Even if I've used peel ply, I'm going to sand it and wipe it down with acetone or alcohol, just to be sure that we have the best possible bond quality between the hull and the tabbing, because that's what it really comes down to. You need to have a good bond. If you don't have a good bond, then all of this rest, the angles and everything doesn't matter. So good prep work is crucial. Okay, time to start do some tabbing, and I will start with the aft side of that bulkhead. So first I will put down the unidirectional carbon, and over that I will add some biax glass plus minus 45 degrees, just to keep everything in place and take up any off-axis loads that the bulkhead could see from movements in the hull and such. And I know a lot of people say you should never mix carbon and glass, but that's really only true when they share the same load path, and that's not the case here. And there's really no harm mixing glass and carbon. It's just that if they share the same load path, the glass will just sit there, it won't do anything. The carbon will take up all the strain. But in this case, the glass will protect the carbon because it's tougher, and it will also take up any off-axis loads that is not coming from the rigging. That was quite stressful actually. It's pretty warm today, around 23, 24 now in the afternoon. And that makes it quite stressful when you're laminating this much in one go, even if we're using the slow hardener now. But I managed, but you have to work quite fast. What do you think?
It looks massive. It looks, I don't think it really came through on the video, through the camera, how much this really is and how much we had to build up to get this curve.
Yeah, especially on this side, yeah.
I think it's about that much on this side.
Yeah.
That you had to build up with epoxy and then use those
sapele wedges, yeah. It really is a part of the hull now. You can really hear how solid it is.
Really. So later on, when the interior is done, the locker for the pantry will be here. We will open it from this side, open it like that, and then we'll have like drawers that you pull out where we can store food. And then comes like a bench top, maybe out to here from the outside of the hull, going all this side, and we will have the freezer and fridge on this side. Oi, that was sticky.
Yeah, some tape.
But this was stressful yesterday.
Yeah, it was. It was quite a lot of stuff going on. There are quite many layers, and
yesterday was the warmest day so far this year. It will be better today now making this. And you have all the preparations done already?
No.
Ah, okay. You have to cut the...
Yeah. And most of the carbon is okay, but the rest of it I need to prepare. And I also need to do the rest of the tabbing up here, but I'm thinking maybe you can do that.
Yeah.
That will only be...
glass fiber?
Biax.
Yeah.
It will be the same on the upper part on this side.
This episode got quite technical.
You think?
And with a lot of information just explaining all about this. Your brain has been on overload these past 2 weeks. It's been a lot.
Lots to think about.
It feels good now, right?
Yeah, I think
this is done, and it became just as strong as it needs to be. And
it's way stronger than it needs to be. I think the breaking strength of this before it would separate from the hull or before the hull delaminates over this surface, it's multiple times the breaking strength of the wire connecting to this. But I think I said it before, it's just that we want this to be as strong 20 years from now as well. I mean, the rigging, you change that maybe every 10 years, but this is something that you never change. So it needs to be strong also in the future after millions of load cycles. So that's why I think it's really worth overbuilding this.
So that was all for this week's episode, a long episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to join us on our open house, it's the last chance now to sign up for this year's open house. So click into our Patreon page, and at the same time you will support our videos, which we are very thankful for. So take care, and we see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.